Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the stars through the main window. The ship was huge, bigger than 3 city blocks put together. It was the strongest warship in the human fleet, armed with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Jake had been in space for 15 years. He was tall and strong, with gray hair and serious eyes. The crew respected him because he always made the right choices, even when they were hard ones. "Sir, we're getting something?" "Strange," said Lisa Park from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, a young woman with short black hair and quick fingers that danced across her control panel. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal from outside our solar system. Very far. Away. The computer says it's from the Kepler 442 system." Lisa's face looked worried. "Sir, I think it's a distress call." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Humans had been exploring space for 50 years, but they rarely heard from alien races. Most aliens avoided humans, calling them Deathworlders, because Earth was such a dangerous planet compared to other worlds. "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The bridge went quiet as strange sounds filled the air. The alien voice was high and musical, but full of fear. The ship's computer worked to translate the words. "This is Ambassador Keth Windweaver of the Zephyrian Republic," the translated voice said. "We are under attack. Our cities are burning. Our people are dying. The enemy destroys everything they touch. We need help. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us." Captain Danny Walsh, Jake's second in command, stepped forward. Danny was shorter than Jake, but just as tough. He had been Jake's friend for 10 years. "Commander, we have orders not to get involved in alien wars." Jake nodded. Danny was right. The human government had made it clear that Earth ships should stay out of alien conflicts. But Jake could hear the fear in the alien voice. These people were going to die if no one helped them. "How many ships do we have in this area?" Jake asked. "Just our battle group, sir," said Amy Chun, the captain of the destroyer, USS Vigilant. She was speaking through the communication system from her own ship. "We have the Defiance, my ship, and the USS Mercy." Jake looked at the star map on the main screen. The Kepler 442 system was 3 days away at maximum speed. 3 days to reach people who might be dead by then. "Sir," said Dr. Helen Brooks, the ship's science officer. She was a smart woman who had studied alien technology for years. "I'm looking at the signal. The energy patterns are unlike anything we've seen before." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means whoever is attacking the Zephyrians isn't any alien race we know about," Helen said. "This could be something completely new." Jake thought about his options. He could follow orders and ignore the distress call. That would be safe. But innocent people would die, and humanity would lose the chance to help a peaceful alien race. "Lisa, open a channel to all ships in our group," Jake ordered. "Channel open, sir. This is Commander Morrison to all ships. We have received a distress call from the Zephyrian Republic. They are under attack by an unknown enemy. I am ordering our battle group to respond immediately." Danny stepped closer. To Jake, "Sir, Earth Command won't like this." "Earth Command isn't here," Jake said. "We are, and we're going to help these people." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Taylor's voice came through the speakers from the USS Mercy. "Sir, my ship is ready to go. We can handle medical aid and rescue operations." "Good," Jake said. "Amy, how long for your ship to be ready?" 10 minutes, Commander," Amy replied. Jake turned to his crew. "All hands, prepare for hyperspace jump. We leave in 15 minutes." The bridge became busy as the crew prepared the ship for the long journey. Jake watched them work and felt proud. These people were ready to risk their lives for aliens. had never met. Helen approached him with a datapad. Sir, I've been studying what little information we have about the attacking force. The energy signatures are completely unknown. Whatever these things are, they're not like any alien technology in our databases. Are they dangerous? Jake asked. Very dangerous, Helen said. The Zephyrians have good technology, but they're losing badly. That means we're going up against something powerful. Jake nodded. He had led his people into dangerous situations before. We'll deal with it when we get there. The ship shook slightly as the engines powered up. Jake could feel the Defiance preparing for the jump to hyperspace. In a few minutes, they would be traveling faster than light toward a system where people were dying. All ships ready, Commander, Lisa reported. Take us out, Jake ordered. The stars outside the window stretched into long lines of light as the USS Defiance and her escort ships jumped into hyperspace. They were 3 days away from the Kepler 442 system, 3 days away from their first real battle with an unknown enemy. Jake stood on the bridge and wondered what they would find when they arrived. He hoped they would not be too late to save the Zephyrians. He also hoped his small fleet would be strong enough to fight whatever was destroying an entire alien civilization. The journey to save the Zephyrian Republic had begun. 3 days later, the USS Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What Jake Morrison saw made his blood run cold. The Zephyrian homeworld was a burning ball of fire in the distance. What had once been a beautiful blue and green planet now glowed orange with massive fires. Around it, the remains of space stations floated like broken toys, twisted metal and debris spread across thousands of miles. My God, whispered Lisa Park from her station. What happened? Here, Jake stared at the destruction. He had seen war before, but nothing like this. This was not just an attack. This was the complete destruction of an entire civilization. Sir, I'm picking up life signs, reported Dr. Helen Brooks. Small groups scattered across the system. They're in escape pods and damaged ships. Danny, take us closer, but keep our weapons ready. Jake ordered his second-in-command. Amy, bring the Vigilant around to our left side. Ryan, get the Mercy ready to pick up survivors. The 3 human ships moved deeper into the system. As they got closer, Jake could see the escape pods floating in space. They were small, egg-shaped vehicles designed to keep people alive for a few days. Some were damaged and dark. Commander, we're getting a signal from one of the pods, Lisa said. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was weak, but clear. The alien spoke in the same musical language they had heard in the distress call 3 days ago. This is Ambassador Keth Windweaver, the voice said after the computer translated it. Are you the humans who answered our call? Jake felt relief. At least some of the Zephyrians were still alive. This is Commander Morrison of the Earthship. Defiance, we're here to help. Commander, you must leave the system immediately, the alien said. The Devourers are still here. They will destroy you like they destroyed us. Devourers? Jake asked. Is that what they're called? They are death itself, Windweaver replied. They consume everything. Every living thing on every world they visit. Nothing stops them. Before Jake could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. The tactical officer shouted across the bridge. Sir, we have contacts. Large ships coming from behind the gas giant. Jake looked at the main screen. Massive shapes were emerging from the shadow of the system's largest planet. The ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were not made of metal, like human ships. Instead, they looked alive, with surfaces that moved and pulsed like skin. How? Many? Jake asked. 12 large ships and dozens of smaller ones, the tactical officer replied. Sir, they're huge. The biggest one is 3 times the size of the Defiance. Jake felt his heart pound. His 3 ships were badly outnumbered, but he could not leave the survivors to die. All ships, battle stations, Jake ordered. Ryan, get those survivors aboard the Mercy as fast as you can. Amy, prepare to engage the enemy. The alien ships moved toward them with surprising speed. As they got closer, Jake could see that they were indeed alive. The surfaces rippled with movement, and strange tentacles reached out from their sides. "Sir, they're firing," the tactical officer reported. Beams of green energy shot from the alien ships toward the human fleet. Jake watched as the beams hit the Vigilance shields, which flared and sparked but held. "Return fire," Jake ordered. The Defiance and Vigilant opened fire with their plasma cannons. The bright blue beams struck the alien ships, and Jake expected to see explosions and damage. Instead, the energy seemed to be absorbed by the living ships, which continued moving toward them without any sign of harm. "Sir, our weapons aren't working," Amy reported from the Vigilant. "The energy is being absorbed somehow." Jake cursed under his breath. The enemy ships were adapting to their weapons. As he watched, smaller creatures began pouring out of the large ships. They were the size of fighter jets, but looked like flying insects with metallic shells. "We have incoming fighters," the tactical officer warned. The alien fighters swung toward the human ships. They moved in patterns that no human pilot could follow, twisting and turning through space like living things. When they reached the human ships, they did something Jake had never seen before. They landed on the hull and began eating through it. "Sir, we have hull breaches on decks 5 and 7, reported the damage control officer. "Something is eating through our armor." Jake could hear the fear in his crew's voices. The alien creatures were literally consuming his ship, while his weapons had no effect on the enemy. "All hands, prepare for boarding actions," Jake ordered. "Get the Marines to the breach points. Use kinetic weapons. Bullets, not energy." The USS Mercy was working frantically to rescue survivors from the escape pods. Ryan Taylor's voice came through the communication system. "Commander, I have Ambassador Windweaver aboard. He says he has important information about the enemy." "Bring him to the bridge," Jake ordered. Minutes later, Jake got his first look at a Zephyrian. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes. His people looked fragile compared to humans, but Jake could see intelligence and courage in the alien's face. "Commander Morrison," Windweaver said through a translation device, "you must retreat. The Devourers cannot be stopped with conventional weapons. What are they?" Jake asked as explosions shook the ship around them. "They are a hive mind," Windweaver explained. "They consume all biological matter on every world they visit. They have destroyed thousands of civilizations. My people tried to fight them for 3 days. We had good weapons and strong shields, but nothing worked." Jake watched the battle on the main screen. His 3 ships were being overwhelmed. The alien fighters were eating through the hulls faster than his repair teams could fix the damage. The large ships were getting closer, and Jake could see more green energy beams charging up. "Sir, we need to withdraw," Danny said urgently. "We can't fight these things." Jake knew Danny was right. They were outgunned and outnumbered. But he also knew that if they left, the remaining Zephyrian survivors would die. "How many survivors do we have aboard?" Jake asked. 400 so far," Ryan reported. "But there are more pods scattered throughout the system." Jake made a decision that would haunt him for years. "All ships, prepare to withdraw. We'll come back with reinforcements." "Sir, there's something else," Windweaver said quietly. "The Devourers do not just destroy one world. They move from system to system, consuming everything in their path. If they are not stopped here, they will spread across the galaxy." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. These creatures were not just attacking the Zephyrians. They were a threat. to every living thing in the galaxy, including Earth. "Take us out of here," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." The 3 human ships retreated from the Kepler 442 system, carrying 400 Zephyrian survivors. Behind them, the Devourers continued their terrible feast, consuming everything that had once been a thriving civilization as they jumped into hyperspace. Jake was already composing a message to Earth. The human race had just encountered something that could destroy all life in the galaxy. And Jake Morrison was going to make sure that Earth was ready to fight. 3 days after Jake Morrison's desperate message reached Earth, the largest fleet in human history arrived at the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Susan Martinez commanded 37 warships, including the massive dreadnought USS Retribution and 3 full carrier groups loaded with fighter squadrons. Ambassador Keth Windweaver stood on the bridge of the Defiance, staring at the fleet through the main window. His large eyes grew even wider as he counted the human ships. "This is impossible," he whispered to Jake. "How did you gather so many ships so quickly?" Jake smiled grimly. "When humanity is threatened, we move fast." What Windweaver could not understand was that humans had been preparing for war since they first learned to walk upright. When Jake's message reached Earth, the government had immediately ordered every available ship to the Kepler 442 system. The human fleet had crossed half the galaxy in just 3 days. Admiral Martinez was a tough woman in her 50s who had been fighting space pirates for 20 years. Her hair was silver, and her eyes were hard as steel. She had earned her position by being smarter and more ruthless than anyone else in the human fleet. "Commander Morrison," she said as she came aboard, "the Defiance. I've read your report. Tell me about these Devourers." Jake led her to the briefing room where Dr. Helen Brooks had been working around the clock. The science officer looked tired but excited. "Admiral, I've been studying the biological samples we collected during the battle," Helen said. "The Devourers are unlike anything in our databases. They're part machine, part living creature. Their ships can adapt to energy weapons by changing their biological structure." "Can they be killed?" Martinez asked. "Yes, but not with energy weapons. They adapt too quickly. However, I've found something interesting." Helen brought up a holographic display showing microscopic images. "They can't adapt to physical damage as easily. Kinetic weapons, bullets, missiles, railgun rounds cause permanent damage." Admiral Martinez nodded. "What else?" "They're also vulnerable to certain chemical compounds. Specifically, acids and caustic materials disrupt their regenerative abilities." Helen paused. "Admiral, I think we can hurt them, but we need to change our tactics completely." Jake looked at the holographic display. "What about their numbers?" "We saw 12 large ships and dozens of smaller ones." According to Ambassador Windweaver, that was just a small part of their fleet, Helen said. "The main force is much larger. They're currently feeding on the gas giant's organic compounds, growing stronger." Admiral Martinez turned to Windweaver. "How long do we have?" The alien ambassador looked sad. "In my people's experience, the Devourers typically consume everything in a system within 1 week. After that, they move to the next system. But they have never faced resistance like this before." "Good," Martinez said. "That gives us time to prepare. Helen, I want you to work with our weapons specialists. Modify every energy weapon in the fleet to fire kinetic projectiles. I want railguns, missile launchers, and anything else that can punch holes in those ships." Over the next day, the human fleet worked with amazing speed. Engineers stripped energy, weapons from their mounts and replaced them with railguns. Fighter pilots practiced new attack patterns designed to get close to the enemy ships. Marines prepared for boarding actions with flamethrowers and explosive charges. Captain Amy Chun approached Jake with a report. "Sir, we've modified the fighters with experimental acid-based warheads. It's dangerous. If the acid leaks, it could eat through our own ships, but it should work against the Devourers. Jake nodded. What about the railguns? We're loading them with depleted uranium rounds, Amy said. They'll punch through anything. While the fleet prepared, Jake spent time with Ambassador Windweaver, learning about the enemy. The Zephyrian told him stories that made Jake's blood run cold. They have consumed entire star systems, Windweaver said. My people have records going back 50,000 years. In all that time, no civilization has ever successfully fought the Devourers. They adapt too quickly, and they never stop coming. Why do they do it? Jake asked. They are driven by hunger, Windweaver replied. They must consume biological matter to survive. To them, every living world is just food. Jake thought about Earth, with its billions of people and countless forms of life. The idea of the Devourers reaching his homeworld made him angry. They've never fought humans before, Jake said. What makes humans different? Windweaver asked. Jake smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. We're from what you call a death world. We've been fighting to survive since we first drew breath. And we don't know how to give up. The test of human adaptability came when Admiral Martinez ordered a small strike force to attack a group of Devourer scouts. Jake led the mission with the Defiance, 2 destroyers, and a squadron of modified fighters. The enemy scouts were smaller than the main ships, but still deadly. As they approached, Jake could see the biological surfaces rippling with movement. The Devourers immediately began adapting their defenses, just as they had before. All ships open fire, Jake ordered. This time, instead of energy beams, the human ships fired railgun rounds and kinetic missiles. The depleted uranium rounds struck the Devourer ships like hammers, punching clean through their living armor. The creatures could not adapt quickly enough to stop the physical impacts. Direct hits, reported the tactical officer. The enemy ships are taking damage. Lieutenant Sarah Davis led the fighter squadron in their attack run. She was a young pilot with quick reflexes and a reputation for taking risks. Her fighter, Reaper 1, carried 4 acid-based warheads. Reaper 1 to all fighters, she called over the radio. Remember, get in close and hit them with everything you've got. Don't give them time to adapt. Sarah's fighter dove toward the largest Devourer ship, dodging the green energy beams that reached out like tentacles. She fired 2 warheads at close range, watching as the acid ate through the alien ship's hull. Direct hit, she shouted. The acid is working. The other fighters followed her example, attacking in fast, aggressive runs that gave the Devourers no time to adapt. The alien ships began to show real damage for the first time, but the Devourers were not helpless. They released swarms of the smaller creatures that had eaten through the human ships before. This time, the human fighters were ready. Switch to conventional weapons, Sarah ordered. Bullets and missiles only. The human pilots opened fire with machine guns and small missiles, weapons that their ancestors had used centuries ago on Earth. The Devourer creatures could not adapt to the simple, brutal effectiveness of kinetic weapons. Within an hour, the human strike force had destroyed all 6 Devourer scout ships. Not a single human vessel was lost. Admiral, this is Morrison, Jake reported. Mission successful. The new weapons work. Excellent, Martinez replied. Return to the fleet. We have a real battle to prepare for. As the strike force returned to the main fleet, Ambassador Windweaver stared at the tactical display in amazement. I do not understand, he said. How did you defeat them so easily? Jake looked at the alien ambassador. Your people are peaceful. You build consensus and avoid conflict. Those are good qualities, but they don't help in a fight. And humans are different. Humans are survivors, Jake said. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to adapt, how to change tactics, how to find weaknesses. And we never give up. Windweaver was quiet for a long moment. My people were wrong about humans. We thought you were primitive, because you come from a dangerous world. But perhaps that is exactly what makes you strong. Jake nodded. The Devourers are about to learn what it means to fight a species that evolved on a death world. And I don't think they're going to like it. The main Devourer fleet emerged from the gas giant's shadow like a nightmare made real. Admiral Susan Martinez counted over 200 bioships of various sizes, some so massive they dwarfed human dreadnoughts. Their surfaces writhed with alien life, and Jake Morrison could see smaller creatures swarming around them like insects around a corpse. All ships, battle stations, Martinez ordered from the bridge of the USS Retribution. This is what we came here to do. The human fleet formed into 3 groups as they had planned. The main battle line, led by Martinez herself, would engage. The largest Devourer ships with their new kinetic weapons. The fast attack squadrons under Captain Danny Walsh would target the smaller bioships with hit-and-run tactics. Jake Morrison commanded the stealth ships, trying to find and destroy whatever controlled the Devourer hive mind. "Sir, the enemy is moving to attack," reported the tactical officer on the Defiance. "They're coming straight at us." Jake watched the alien fleet approach. There was something terrifying about their movement. They did not fly like machines, but flowed through space like living things. The largest ship was at the center, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that hurt to look at directly. "That's their command ship," Ambassador Windweaver said quietly. He had insisted on remaining on the bridge despite the danger. The hive mind nexus. If you can destroy it, the others will lose coordination. "How do you know?" Jake asked. "Because that is how they destroyed my homeworld," Windweaver replied. "They always protect their nexus ship. It will be the most heavily defended." The battle began when the 2 fleets were still thousands of miles apart. The Devourers fired first, sending streams of green energy toward the human ships. But this time the humans were ready. They had modified their shields to deflect energy weapons and positioned their ships to minimize damage. "All ships return fire," Admiral Martinez ordered. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Railgun rounds streaked through space at incredible speeds, smashing into the Devourer ships. The aliens tried to adapt as they had before, but the kinetic weapons were too fast and too powerful. "Direct hits on 3 enemy ships," reported Captain Amy Chun from the USS Vigilant. "They're taking heavy damage." But the Devourers were not helpless. They released thousands of the smaller creatures that had eaten through human ships before. This time, however, the human fighters were ready for them. Lieutenant Sarah Davis led her squadron in a desperate attack against the swarm. "All fighters, remember your training," she called over the radio. "Fast attack runs, kinetic weapons only." The space battle became a massive firefight. Human ships fired railgun rounds and missiles, while the Devourers responded with energy beams and biological weapons. The smaller creatures tried to latch onto human ships, but the fighter pilots shot them down with machine guns and small missiles. "Sir, we're taking heavy casualties," reported Captain Walsh. "The enemy has adapted to some of our tactics." Jake could see the truth of it on his tactical display. Several human ships were badly damaged, and the Devourer fleet was learning to counter their new weapons. But something else was happening. The aliens were becoming disorganized. Their perfect coordination was breaking down under the fierce human assault. "They're not used to this kind of resistance," Jake realized. "They expect their enemies to give up or retreat." "Sir, I'm reading massive bioelectrical activity from the command ship," reported Dr. Helen Brooks. "It's trying to maintain control over the entire fleet." Jake made a decision that would haunt him forever. All stealth ships target the command vessel. "We're going to ram it." "Sir, that's suicide," protested his tactical officer. "Maybe," Jake said. "But if we don't destroy that Nexus ship, this battle will drag on until we're all dead." The USS Defiance and 2 other stealth ships broke away from the main battle, using their advanced cloaking systems to approach the massive command vessel. As they got closer, Jake could see the full horror of the Devourer Nexus ship Dot. It was alive in every sense of the word. The hull breathed like skin, and massive eyes opened and closed along its length. Tentacles reached out from its sides, each one the size of a human destroyer. At its center was a pulsing organ that glowed with sickly light. "That's the brain," Windweaver whispered. "The hive mind Nexus. Destroy it, and the others will be helpless." Jake's ship shook as Devourer defenders fired at them. One of the other stealth ships exploded in a ball of fire, its crew dying instantly. But Jake pressed on, bringing the Defiance closer to the massive alien vessel. "All hands, prepare for impact," Jake ordered. "Set the reactor to overload." Meanwhile, the main battle continued to rage. Admiral Martinez's ships were holding their own, but the cost was terrible. The USS Retribution had lost half its weapons, and 3 destroyers had been completely destroyed. The human fleet was running out of ammunition and time. Marine Colonel Pete Johnson led boarding parties onto damaged Devourer ships, using flamethrowers and explosive charges to clear the alien corridors. The Devourers had never faced humans in close combat before, and they were not prepared for the ferocity of the human assault. "These things die just like anything else," Johnson reported over the radio as his Marines fought through a bioship's living corridors. "You just have to hit them hard enough." Lieutenant Sarah Davis was running out of ammunition for her fighter when she saw Jake's ship approaching the command vessel. She understood what he was planning to do. "All fighters, cover the Defiance," she ordered. "Clear them a path to the target." The human fighters threw themselves at the Devourer defenders, sacrificing themselves to give Jake a clear shot at the Nexus ship. Sarah's fighter was hit by an energy beam, but she kept flying, determined to complete her mission. Jake's ship was now so close to the command vessel that he could see individual alien creatures moving on its surface. The reactor was overloading, and he had perhaps 30 seconds before it exploded. "This is for Earth," Jake said quietly, "and for every world these monsters have destroyed." The USS Defiance smashed into the Nexus ship's central organ at full speed. The reactor exploded a split second later, creating a fireball that could be seen from anywhere in the system. The massive command vessel shuddered and began to break apart. The effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate. The bioships began moving, randomly, no longer coordinated by the hive mind. Some crashed into each other, while others simply stopped fighting and began to drift. "Sir, the enemy fleet is breaking up," reported Captain Sean. "They're retreating toward the outer system." "Admiral." Martinez watched as the remaining Devourer ships fled toward the edge of the system. Many were too damaged to fight, and those that could still move were no longer working together. "All ships, pursue and destroy," she ordered. "Don't let any of them escape." The human fleet chased the fleeing Devourers, destroying dozens of the bioships before they could reach hyperspace. But many still escaped, carrying news of their defeat to other parts of the galaxy. Lieutenant Sarah Davis managed to land her damaged fighter on the USS Vigilant, her aircraft held together by determination and luck. As she climbed out of the cockpit, she could see the debris field where Jake Morrison's ship had been. "He saved us all," she said quietly. The Battle of Kepler 442 was over. The Devourer fleet was destroyed, and the immediate threat to the galaxy was ended. But the cost had been terrible. Over 3,000 human lives lost, including Commander Jake Morrison, the man who had started it all. As the human fleet regrouped, Ambassador Windweaver stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, looking at the wreckage of his homeworld. The planet was still burning, but his people were safe. The humans had saved them when no one else could. "Admiral Martinez," he said quietly, "my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Martinez nodded grimly. "The debt is paid by those who didn't make it home. Just remember what they died for." The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Somewhere in the galaxy, more Devourer fleets were waiting, and humanity would have to face them all. The silence after the battle was almost as terrifying as the fighting had been. Admiral Susan Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, watching the debris field where hundreds of ships had fought and died. The Devourer bioships were gone, fled into hyperspace or destroyed, but the cost of victory was written in twisted metal and empty space. "Final casualty report, Admiral," said Captain Amy Chun. She had taken over Jake Morrison's duties after his heroic sacrifice. "We lost 7 ships completely destroyed, including the USS Defiance. 15 more ships are heavily damaged. Total casualties are 3,412 dead, with another 800 wounded." Martinez felt the weight of every lost life. These people had followed her into battle against an enemy that had never been defeated before. They had won, but the price was almost too high to bear. "What about the Devourers?" she asked. "We destroyed approximately 60% of their fleet," Chun reported. "The rest escaped into hyperspace. Dr. Brooks estimates that at least 80 bioships got away." Martinez nodded grimly. 80 ships was still a massive force, enough to destroy dozens of worlds. But it was better than the alternative. If an entire Devourer fleet had escaped, they would have continued their rampage across the galaxy. Ambassador Keth Windweaver approached the Admiral. The alien looked older than when Jake had first rescued him, aged by the loss of his homeworld and the horror of what he had witnessed. "Admiral Martinez," he said through his translation device, "I have something important to tell you. Something that changes everything." Martinez gestured for him to continue. "The Devourers you fought here were not the main force," Windweaver said. "They were a scouting fleet sent ahead to prepare the way for something much larger." The bridge fell silent. Martinez felt a cold chill run down her spine. "How much larger?" she asked. "According to the records my people maintained, the main Devourer swarm consists of thousands of ships," Windweaver said. "They have been consuming civilizations for over 50,000 years. Every major power in the galaxy has tried to stop them. All have failed." Dr. Helen Brooks stepped forward. "Ambassador, if this was just a scouting force, why did they commit so many resources to one system?" "Because they had never encountered resistance like this," Windweaver explained. "In all their history, no civilization has ever successfully fought back against the Devourers. Most species surrender when they see the bioships. Others try to fight, but are overwhelmed quickly." Martinez understood the implications. "We were the first to actually hurt them." "Yes," Windweaver said. "And now they know that humans are a threat. The main swarm will come for Earth eventually." The bridge was quiet as everyone absorbed this information. They had won a great victory, but in doing so, they had painted a target on their homeworld. "There's something else," Windweaver continued. "The Galactic Council has been monitoring this battle. They are amazed by what you have accomplished." "The Galactic Council?" Martinez asked. "The governing body of the major galactic civilizations," Windweaver explained. "They have been trying to find a way to fight the Devourers for thousands of years. Today, they watched a small human fleet do what no other species has ever done." Before Martinez could respond, Communications Officer Lisa Park called out from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from outside the system. It's on all frequencies, very powerful." "Put it through," Martinez ordered. The main screen flickered, and a new alien face appeared. This one was different from the Zephyrians. older looking, with silver skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Council Speaker Zenth of the Galactic Council. We have observed your battle against the Devourers with great interest." Martinez stepped forward. "This is Admiral Martinez of the Terran Defense Fleet. How can we help you?" "It is we who wish to help you," Zenth replied. "For 50,000 years, the Devourers have been the greatest threat to all life in the galaxy. They have consumed entire star systems, destroyed countless civilizations, and turned living worlds into dead rocks." The alien paused, and Martinez could see something like hope in his strange eyes. Today, for the first time in recorded history, the Devourers were defeated in open battle. Not just delayed or avoided, truly defeated. The implications of this victory cannot be overstated. Dr. Brooks moved closer to Martinez. "Admiral, this could be why other species avoid us. They're not just afraid of our aggression. They're afraid of what we might be capable of." Speaker Zenth continued his transmission. "We have studied your tactics, Admiral Martinez. Your species possesses qualities that are extremely rare in the galaxy. You adapt quickly to new threats. You accept casualties in pursuit of victory. Most importantly, you refuse to surrender even when facing overwhelming odds." "What does that mean for Earth?" Martinez asked. "It means that humanity may be the galaxy's last hope," Zenth replied. "The Galactic Council formally requests that Earth lead a coalition fleet against the Devourer threat. We will provide ships, resources, and intelligence. But we need human leadership and human tactics." Martinez felt the weight of the entire galaxy settling on her shoulders. Humanity had only been in space for 50 years, and now they were being asked to save civilizations that were thousands of years old. "I'll need to consult with my government," Martinez said. "Of course," Zenth replied, "but please understand, time is not on our side. The main Devourer swarm will reach this part of the galaxy within 1 year. If they are not stopped, every living world will fall." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Martinez looked around at her crew, tired, battle-worn. Humans who had just learned that they were the galaxy's only hope against an enemy that had never been defeated. Captain Chun approached her. "Admiral, what do we tell the crew?" "The truth," Martinez replied, "that we've just become the most important military force in the galaxy." Over the next few days, as the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, more alien ships arrived in the Kepler 442 system. Representatives from dozens of species came to see the battlefield where the impossible had happened. Dr. Brooks worked with alien scientists to analyze the wreckage of Devourer bioships. What they learned was disturbing. The creatures were not just animals. They were engineered weapons, designed to consume and adapt. Someone or something had created them for the specific purpose of destroying all life in the galaxy. "Admiral," Brooks reported, "the Devourers aren't a natural species. They're weapons. And whoever made them is still out there." Lieutenant Sarah Davis, now promoted to squadron leader, stood in the hangar bay looking at her new fighter. It was painted with the names of all the pilots who had died in the battle, including Commander Jake Morrison. She had volunteered to lead the advanced reconnaissance missions that would be needed in the coming war. "They're naming the new battle group after Morrison," Amy Chun told her. "The Morrison Battle Group, first unit in the new Galactic Defense Force." Sarah nodded. "He'd like that. He always said we were fighting for something bigger than ourselves." As the human fleet prepared to depart for Earth, Ambassador Windweaver made one final request. He wanted to address the human crews before they left. "People of Earth," he said, his voice carried throughout the fleet. "My civilization is 4,000 years old. In all that time, we have never seen courage like yours. You came to help strangers. risked everything for people you had never met, and refused to give up even when victory seemed impossible. He paused, his large eyes bright with emotion. The galaxy calls your world a death world, as if that is something to be ashamed of. But we were wrong. Your dangerous planet made you strong. Your struggles made you fierce. Your losses taught you that some things are worth dying for. The Devourers have consumed thousands of worlds, but they have never faced anything like humanity. You are warriors born from chaos, survivors forged in fire. And now you are the galaxy's greatest hope. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the Retribution as the fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading home to Earth. Behind them, the Kepler 442 system was finally quiet, the first system in 50,000 years to successfully resist the Devourers. But Martinez knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere in the depths of space, the main Devourer swarm was moving toward inhabited worlds. Ancient enemies of all life were stirring, and the galaxy would need every human ship, every human soldier, and every ounce of human determination to survive what was coming. The Deathworld species had answered the galaxy's call for help. Now came the hard part, proving that they were strong enough to save everyone.